Kia ora koutou, Markie here with a video on retroactive jealousy. I thought I would give you a nice little view rather than a picture of my ugly mug because I'm in the fern gardens today, which are rather lovely. So it's all kind of greenhouses and this is the tropical part. So we've got the sound of running water, which is there's a little fish pond over there, and I hope that just doesn't make you want to empty your bladder. That's a nice ambient kind of sound. I did try and do just a meditational video of the pond and plants and stuff like that, but there were some power tools and some noisy equipment in the background which kind of spoilt it somewhat. So this is a video kind of long in the making in a way, because I've been thinking about this for a while and people have asked me this question a couple of times, and it came up again today. So this is my attempt at answering the question, what do you do if your partner has RJ but doesn't do anything about it? So it may be that they do nothing, don't recognise it as a problem, or it may be that they recognise it as a problem and maybe have looked into it a little bit but are not changing, they're not improving. Whatever it is they're doing isn't working. Or they're not working. What do you do about that? Okay, so really important question, because I always maintain that partners suffer as much as people with RJ. It's something with the partner and the sufferer, it's equally distressing for both parties, and has broken up many an otherwise good relationship. So okay, so it's a complex one really. So, and this kind of, comes down to kind of personal responsibility and boundaries, because we can't change anybody else, we can't, we shouldn't be thinking about kind of changing our partner, because that smacks of kind of control, codependency and things like that. So, but at the same token, we need to be responsible for our own well-being and not put up with things that are abusive. So it's very fair. So this is a question that comes up a lot. I mean, a lot of my background is in addiction. So this comes up a lot in addiction, a partner of an addict. So you've got the addict and you've got their partner suffering with their addiction. And maybe the partner's in denial, the person with the addiction is in denial. The partner's, very aware that it's an addiction and that it incorporates some, or entails some unreasonable behaviour. So what I always advise in that case is for the partner not to take on the role of a therapist, or more often the role of, I did a video about this actually, cops and robbers. That's what tends to happen, is that the partner of an addict will try and kind of fix them, or try and control their alcohol intake, say if it's alcoholism, so the alcoholic ends up hiding bottles and the partner ends up trying to find them. And it creates this kind of game which doesn't actually help either person. But what I always say in that situation is, don't try and control the addict, don't try and police them, don't try and catch them out, don't try and enable them, don't try and make their addiction functional and okay, which is what a lot of partners also do, is they'll phone the partner's boss and say, oh, we can't make it in today because he blah blah blah, and actually he's just drunk. But by the same token, what I say is you can't don't put up with unreasonable behaviour. Draw clear boundaries, and you don't have to put up with a partner who's not addressing an addiction problem. You can draw a line in the sand and say, I'm not prepared to remain in this relationship to continue unless you get help and deal with this issue, because that's about you. It's about you kind of saying what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. So I hope that difference kind of comes across clearly. Okay, so it's not about trying to be the therapist or the doctor or the person that makes everything okay, or controls or enables, or any of those kinds of things. They all smack of codependency. But what it is okay is for you to make decisions about you and what's okay for you what's acceptable for you to put up with and what's not. And you're very within your rights to kind of state that and stick by it. Okay, so And I think there's no difference with retroactive jealousy. So, you know, I think it's very reasonable to say to the partner, look, I'm not prepared to put up with this behaviour. No, I'm not talking about a partner who is silent in their retroactive jealousy. You know, if it's somebody that isn't getting better, but that, you know, the only signs you have of their retroactive jealousy are that they seem a bit distressed sometimes. If they're not saying anything, if they're not acting it out, but if they're acting out that retroactive jealousy and they're asking you questions constantly, or making judgments about you and your past or current behaviours, then that's something you don't have to put up with. So I've made videos on for partners about how to help your RJ partner get better. Not how to make them get better. There's a difference, you know, how to support them in their recovery, not make them recover. But this is about, you know, are you going to put up with this or not? And you shouldn't have to put up with unreasonable or abusive behaviour. So like I say, if your partner, when we're talking about partners that are choosing not to get into recovery, or the recovery's not working, we're not talking about people that maybe still in the grips of retroactive jealousy, but they're suffering silently. We're talking about people where their behaviour is having a direct impact upon you in an unreasonable way, and you are very well within your rights, and I would strongly encourage you not to stand for it. So what you need, you know, what I suggest you need to be saying is, you know, if somebody's not in treatment, you know, if they're not getting help, if they're not working a program. Okay, so somebody might have read a few books on retroactive jealousy or watched a few videos, but the question really is, are they working a program? And there's different programs that people can work. We've got so for example, we provide one-to-one counselling online. But there's also a video program that I've put online as well, which is I think it's about 35-day program of action. So just because it's a 35-day program doesn't mean that you're going to be sorted in 35 days. It's just 35 days with a different suggestion for each day for a different recovery activity. But those recovery activities aren't just things that you do for the day and then forget about. They're things that you come back to. So are they working a program? Are they actively doing something? So not necessarily a program that somebody else has devised. You know, that you can devise your own program. You can read the books and watch the videos and put your own program together. But recovery from retroactive jealousy does require action. I would say daily action, and a strategy in particular for what happens when you get triggered. So if your partner doesn't have any of that, then they're not working a program. You're not going to get better just by thinking about it. You're not going to get better just by finding out more about retroactive jealousy. You will feel a bit better, but it won't take away the RJ. So that's really the bottom line, I think. But something I would add, really, getting a little bit more in depth, is, you know, what is the nature? What is the relationship between your partner and their beliefs about your behaviour? Okay, I've touched on this in other videos. So this is a case where it might not actually technically even be RJ, okay, because I would say retroactive jealousy is a condition whereby people who have it know that there is a degree of irrationality to it, or, you know, sometimes complete irrationality to it. We've got some people coming past now, and it sounds like they've got noisy, so we might have a bit of a distraction. So what am I trying to say here? So RJ is believed to be an obsessive compulsive, a complex form of obsessive compulsive disorder. And in obsessive compulsive disorder, people don't lose touch with reality in the way that they do with a psychosis. Okay? So in a psychosis, you know, you might have hallucinations or distorted beliefs, and they become very real to you. But in retroactive jealousy and in other forms of OCD, you kind of know you're being irrational. So let's give another example of OCD. You know that you locked the front door, but you still keep checking, okay? And you know that that's crazy, but you still do it, okay? That's the way that RJ works, okay? So if somebody has issues with your sexual or romantic past, and they think that your sexual and romantic past was inherently wrong and bad, or that you did things that are inherently wrong and bad, and that they are quite reasonable in having a difficulty with that, then it's probably not retroactive jealousy. Okay, so that's kind of quite interesting, isn't it? So if they just think that you were bad, or what you did in the past was bad, then it has all the same flavours as retroactive jealousy, but they're not recognising that it's irrational. Then it's probably, strictly speaking, not retroactive jealousy. It's very, very similar, and it might sound like I'm splitting hairs, but this is actually quite important. Okay, so if your partner doesn't have any sense of, oh, I know I'm crazy, I know that it's just me, I know that this is my stuff, then they are actually fully committed to a belief around you or your behaviour being wrong or having been wrong. Okay, so it's a very different situation, although in some ways it's also a kind of subtle distinction. So if they feel that way, if they know that it's irrational, and this is where it kind of ties in with beliefs. Okay, so what the classic kind of RJ thing is, what often happens is when the person with retroactive jealousy has actually had, for want of a better description, a more colourful sexual or romantic history than the partner, and they're absolutely fine with that. They don't feel like they've done anything bad through that, but they have a difficulty with the partner's history, and that they know that something don't add up there. They know something's wrong. Okay, but in the case of somebody who just thinks that the sexual behaviour of the partner was wrong, no two ways about it, that's a very different situation, and probably needs to be looked at in a very different way to RJ, really. And I accept also that there are a lot of grey areas where people aren't really sure. I've come across that a lot, certainly, where people don't know whether it's, and Zachary Stockill talks about this, he talks about it being a clash of values versus retroactive jealousy. So this is where it gets more complicated. So if your partner has very different beliefs than you do about what is okay behaviour in terms of relationships, dating, sex, romance, and they have branded your past behaviour as wrong or bad, that's a kind of very difficult situation, and they will only probably come to terms with that if they see you as being remorseful. Okay, and they'll seek some kind of acknowledgement from you that, yes, I know what I did was bad. Okay, now it's important, if your belief system is that actually what you did was fine and it sits within what's okay for you, that you don't buy into that. Don't kind of apologise for things that where you see there's nothing wrong in terms of your own value system, but your relationship may not succeed and move on because they have to come to terms with that and that clash of values. So this is something different, then, isn't it? This is a clash of values. So the best example I suppose I could think would be, I struggle with racists and people of a kind of a far right disposition. So I would find it very hard to be in a romantic relationship with somebody that was, a bit of a Nazi. How would I kind of come to terms with that? Could I accept that? Or maybe that's something that you just can't accept. And that might be the situation in your relationship. Okay. Or another example would be, you're a very law-abiding person, and your partner is somebody that's, part of the criminal fraternity. How would you reconcile that? How would you operate in a relationship? So I'm not saying that there's no way to accommodate that. Often people in relationships do have very different views about things, and that's kind of okay and normal. That should be a bit. But when it comes to kind of more extremes, You know, where it does appear to be around kind of ethics and morals, it's tricky. You know, it's a difficult one. So what do? You're somebody that accepts, you know, equality and diversity, and your partner is, is a member of a far right organisation. You're into Christianity, and your partner is into Satanism. You know, maybe that can work. You know, maybe there are ways that can work, but it's going to be difficult. Okay, and in those kinds of situations, if you want that relationship to work, then I guess, you know, I think relationship counselling is probably the kind of way to go. So I hope I haven't muddied the waters too much there, really, but I think so. Let's see if we can kind of tidy this up a little bit. So if your partner has retroactive jealousy, and they know that it's irrational, they recognise, then you're kind of pretty clear that it is retroactive jealousy. It's not a clash of values. Why aren't they doing anything about it? You know, it's not your job to make them recover, but it is your job to say that actually, you know, your behaviour with this retroactive jealousy is something that is not acceptable to me, which could mean that they simply remain not in recovery, but that they don't ask you questions, they don't judge you, they don't kind of end the relationship every 5 minutes, or act out in all those kind of unhelpful ways. Or it might be that they, you know, far better that they actively seek to treat the retroactive jealousy. So you're within your rights to kind of make an ultimatum and say, look, you know, either you stop these behaviours, that's the bottom line, it's about behaviours, is you stop these behaviours and be very specific about what behaviours you mean, or we're going nowhere, and I want to see you engage in something that will help you do that. And what we're looking at really for serious recovery is some kind of program where somebody's taking some daily action. Okay. That's a very kind of, you know, totally reasonable, that's a pretty essential kind of thing to do. If it's a situation where your partner doesn't recognise the irrationality of their views about your romantic and sexual past, then that is more like a clash of values, and that's a bit more of a grey area, and that may be something that you can't resolve. And it may be something that you could seek to resolve through relationship counselling, but it's not a given, you know, foregone conclusion that will be successful. Now, I just want to, so that's the crux really of what I want to say, but I just want to add in just a little bit, another kind of factor here, is sometimes people with retroactive jealousy do all the work, but they still don't get better. Okay, so that may be a situation that you're in. Okay. Now, I've done quite a few other videos on that, and one of the things I've talked about is things like secondary gains, and also attachment styles. Okay, so one of the common reasons that people don't get well, even though they're working a program for retroactive jealousy, is that they have some issues around intimacy and some difficulties just around being in a relationship in general, and that tends to come from what we call attachment. So I've done videos on attachment, I've done lots of videos on these things, which you can, at some point I'll stick some links below. So one of the things that is always useful, I think, for couples, where you can kind of help each other, is for both of you to do some work around attachment styles. Okay, I'm not going to explain what attachment styles are in this video, because there's another video that goes into that, but you can actually do questionnaires online that will tell you what your attachment style is. And what I suggest is, and this is a good thing for any relationship really, is for both of you to explore what your attachment style is, because that'll give you a lot of information about some of the kind of dynamics that might be being played out in your relationship. So even if neither of you have got RJ and you're in a relationship, it's a really good thing to do. So that's another thing that I would kind of recommend. So it's not you trying to fix your partner, that's just exploring the relationship dynamic, which is never a bad thing. So I hope this answers the question. So the bottom line is, if your partner does have RJ, and I mean real RJ with the obsessive compulsive disorder elements to it, and that is manifesting in their behaviour, and their behaviour is unreasonable, and you are the person that's suffering as a consequence of that unreasonable behaviour, then I would suggest be very tough. So hopefully that kind of nails it. I hope that's been kind of clear. But if you have any questions, do come back to me. So remember, we have a free Facebook forum for partners of people with RJ. We also provide online counselling for people for partners of people with RJ, and we treat the plight, if you like, of the partner as seriously as we do the plight of the person that's actually suffering with the RJ directly. So we do not underestimate the suffering of partners at all. We're here to help. So thank you for watching this video. If you found this helpful, please click the like button and subscribe. We do also have a Patreon channel, which gives you the opportunity to support our work and help us get a message out. Most of what we do is free videos, free information for sufferers and partners alike. We want to get that all around the world to all the kind of the forgotten places of the world where people are suffering with retroactive jealousy without knowing what it is, so that they can start to recognise what it is and make a choice about whether they want to do something about it, and then provide free information for the people that do. And for those that want more in-depth help, we operate a professional service to do that, as well as a number of other things. So really appreciate you watching this video, really appreciate you subscribing, becoming a patron. All these things are really helpful, and even just for watching. If you're in this situation, I really feel for you, and I hope this advice is helpful. Rangimarie.